Right, how's it going, everybody? This is Ismortah, and during my Sunday 9 a.m. Central board game stream, I'll be showing you a little bit of card games, which is technically the same realm, the physical games, as opposed to the electronic games. And I'm going to be showing you now some Magic the Gathering. I did a little bit of arena stuff, as you know, showed you some cards in my Eldrazi binder of stuff that I collected as far as rares, most valuable stuff I got in the Eldrazi block from 5 years ago. But now I want to show you some of the decks that I've made. I've made 3 different decks from the Eldrazi block. It's heavy with the Eldritch Moon, last set of that block, but it's all themed just cards from that block. So you got the whole theme of being these different color combinations and doing all the cool Eldrazi things that you can do. So what I'm showing you today is a red-green Eldrazi block deck that has all the cool themes and archetypes from that block. And show you the cards up close. You can see, just not only get a feel for like what's cool about the set, but also what's cool about Innistrad, because Innistrad started up again with a new set, Midnight Hunt, and a lot of these cards are probably going to show face and come back in this new block and continuation of the story. So I just want to show you what the cards are, what's cool about them, some strategies, and how this deck was built. All right, so before I get started, let me just make sure you guys can see me on the chats. And of course, if you like what you see, I stream Saturdays and Sundays every week on twitch.tv/Ismortah. VODs are available here, as well as on YouTube at Shadow Balance Games. And then you can check the week updates to the schedule weekly, as well as content updates on Twitter at Shadow Balance. And I'll be sure to take looks at the chats, but I will also be looking at the cards. So, I'll be sure to respond if anyone's watching and has any questions. Cool. All right. All right. So yeah, this is Eldrazi block. That came out 5 years ago, Innistrad. It's my favorite realm just because it's all supernatural stuff, which is cool. What's really cool I thought about that block, though, was that it was all like Eldrazi influenced things. So you had Emerge, the Void, you had melding, you had transformations, you had all these different ways you do, like from the movie The Thing, that all these terrible things that can happen to your creatures, which it was pretty cool. As well as you had the werewolves, the zombies, the vampires, geists, stuff that you associate with supernatural. All right, so this is a red-green deck. It'll probably be easier for me if I just do it like this and show you the cards up close. Because I basically just want you to see what this deck is, what's in it, and get a flavor for what's cool in this deck. All right, so first of all is, this deck I have a bunch of tokens, and I'll show what they are. 3 different token types that I'm using in this red-green deck. You have Eldrazi Scions, which are produced that when you sacrifice them, you can add 1 colorless mana to your mana pool. I know this is sort of like a legacy card that you earlier in the block before they introduced the colorless symbol for mana, which is the diamond, but this actually you add a colorless mana. That's why, for example, you see updates to like Sol Ring that you see 2 diamonds. That means colorless mana. Whereas when you see a gray symbol with a circle, that just means you can use mana of any color, as opposed to colorless mana. So you got Eldrazi Scions I'll be producing, as well as Eldrazi Horrors 3/2. And then also some elementals. And you're like, hey, that looks a lot like Omnath. Yes, because he's going to be creating some of these elementals in this deck. Right. So next set section of cards I'm going to show you are all the cards I have that transform what does that mean? A transform card is a creature, for example, that you see a moon at the top. When you satisfy something, you flip it, it transforms into something else that's now Eldrazi influenced. So it goes from moon to Eldrazi. And since it starts with the moon, most of these cards that transform are werewolves, but there's also some that are other creature types, but it's all like you're going from supernatural to Eldrazi. Hence why mainly why the block is called Eldrazi block by my favorite set, which is this one with the Emrakul symbol, Eldritch Moon, because you got the Eldritch, which is the Eldrazi, and the Moon, the supernatural. All right, so let me show you first. These are all my transforming cards in the deck. And how they had to transforming cards could be like, hey man, but what do you do? Because the cards flip. So how do you have them in your hand? True. So there's two ways. One is you can have it sleeved, and then when you transform it, pull it out of the sleeve. But that's really cumbersome, because then you have to keep touching your card all the time, which then would defeat the purpose of having a sleeve altogether. So what you can do is you could put a clear sleeve on this just to protect it and have it off to the side. And then what you have in your deck, actually, get it out for you, are these cards that tell you which one is actually in your deck, and it has the typical back. So you have this in your deck, and then when you play it, you could then put out your dude that you want, and then let's say it has a clear sleeve, and then you just keep flipping it back and forth or putting it into play as whatever you want it to be. But then you have this with a, even a colored back, solid back, so it protects it, isn't a giveaway what's in your deck. Yet you can still see which one you're playing as. Like this one, you're marked as the battlements, has no stats because it's a land. All right, that's how you can do it. All right, so what are all these transform cards? Which are some of the coolest ones. So here you got a werewolf, Vilden Pack Outcast. And I'm not going to read all of the stuff because you can read it at your leisure and hit pause on this video. But to show you what's cool, he transforms into Drone Pack Kindred. See, when they transform, when you complete it, then something more powerful happens. Then we have She'll see the best way to do this. Conduit of Storms. And you can see in the lower right-hand corner, you can see the value of what it flips into as well. He turns into Conduit of Emrakul. Then we have Smoldering Werewolf. That turns into Erupting Dreadwolf. And so just so you're aware, how I built this deck for funsies is I bought a box of Eldritch Moon. I got a bunch of packs from the other sets in the block. And it's really just like thematically make a deck what I have. So it's definitely something you can build on a budget. Like this deck, for example, has one of every card in the deck. So it doesn't have multiples. It has a bunch of rares, but like if you just go out and buy a rare or buy a box, whatever you get, and make a deck out of that, that's what I did. So I wasn't min-max for what's the best Eldritch Moon deck. It just fun decks you can make out of the cards that you have. So you've got to make a whole bunch of different color decks like I have out of Eldritch Moon. You can then give someone the deck, you can play against each other, have a great time because they're both balanced and equally as powerful as the other decks. But yeah, so this deck has one of every card in the deck. It's so it's very commander-ish, but it's a 60-card deck. All right. Next we have Tangle Claw Werewolf, which is a cool way to see the cards too. One of each card, just because then you can see more stuff. So you can see more of the cool things that are in the set or in the block. turns into Fibrous Entangler. What's up, Knackers? Next we have Elvenwald Captive. Transforms into Ulvenwald Abomination. All right. Next we have Shrill Howler. Transforms into the Howling Chorus. I'm just like, there's so many cool things. It's like, just the thematically, it's like, you have something supernatural turn into something horrific. It is the funsies. Kessek Prowler transforms into Sinuous Predator. All right, Cryptolith Fragment transforms into Aurora of Emrakul. This one, I just really like the whole theme of it, and then it's like turned to this Geist. Eldrazi Reflection, it's so cool. And so another thing too with the three different card decks I'm going to show you in the next 3 streams for Sundays, for Magic, is all these cards also independent of each other. So any card you see in any of my decks, there's only one of, and it's not in any other decks as well. So you can definitely say, hey, you play as those, I play as mine, and you feel totally unique to the other person. If you just say you play this deck, I play this deck. Like it's a dual decks, right? A rival decks, whatever you want to call it. So this one's pretty cool, and this is my last transforming card in this deck, is it's also a Meld card. What's a Meld card? A Meld card means you have 2 different cards that when you flip them and put them together, you make a ginormous card, which is pretty cool. So I'll show you what I mean. So the first one is Handweir Battlements. And that transforms into the top half of Handweir, the Writhing Township. If you have the other card requires you see in play as well. They, instead of when it transforms and melds. So here's Handweir Garrison, Human Soldier. That transforms into the bottom half. And so this, I just think it's like the example of how horrific what happened at this time in Innistrad is you had a land and the soldiers in the garrison merged with itself. They merged with the land to create this horrific monstrosity. It's like, oh my god. Crazy. And this turns into legendary creature, Handweir, the Writhing Township, Eldrazi Ooze. I mean, this is like some crap out of like Resident Evil. This is crazy. 7/4 Trample Haste. And whenever he attacks, you start just spawning Eldrazi horrors that are 3/2. Bananas. It is the funsies. Alright, and in this deck, I'll show you the one straight up Eldrazi I have in this dude, which is Void Winnower. Which you see, and the reason why I don't have many of these, in this case I only have one, because you see they're super expensive to play. So you don't want to have a lot of these in your deck, because then there's no way you'll screw yourself over if you can't play anything when it's your turn, right? But this card is a bomb. 11/9. The opponent cannot cast any spells or block with creatures that have even mana costs. I mean, ouch. Besides the fact you're just playing 11/9 creature. Alright, so the rest of these are not double-sided, so I can just flip through these and show them. Because you got other mechanics, like I said, that you have in the series. You have Emerge, which is basically you have Eldrazi pop out of any creature of yours. You can just have it die and something comes out of it, like the Thing, which is Emerge. There's also Devoid, that you can cast a spell, but then the spell itself, when it comes into play, is colorless. Whatever it is. And then Transform you've already seen, Meld you've already seen. Alright, so I'll show you some of the green, red, other goodness in here. Emrakul's Evangel. He's got it. I mean, look at the side of him. He's like, you know, he's got some growth. Gnarlwood Dryad. Mutated Tree is a Dryad horror. If I touch you, you're gonna have a bad day. And you see, this also has the Delirium mechanic, which is if you have a whole bunch of different types of cards in your graveyard, you get a bonus. So you get an advantage for having lots of different types of crap in your graveyard as opposed to just having a lot of one thing, like having a lot of creatures for like a zombie deck or something. It's like, hey, do I have a spell? Do I have an instant? Do I have a land? Do I have a creature in my graveyard? Sort of thing. Eldritch Evolution. You can tutor for stuff. Now this card is a lot of fun. And I'll kind of, this, like Alexa, a lot of these cards I'm not going to read them to you or go into the strategy, just showing you all the fun cards that I've made in this deck. But this one I do want to share because it's to think about how this card makes it feel like you're spreading a plague. Is what this card is so much fun. Permeating Mass. It's only a 1/1 spirit. So you're like, who cares? But look what it does. When Permeating Mass deals combat damage to a player, that creature becomes a copy of Permeating Mass. So it doesn't matter if this dies. You permanently then transform whatever it touches into Permeating Mass. And then the opponent will then have Permeating Mass. And if it touches one of your creatures, you turn into Permeating Mass. So it turns to a plague that whoever you touch, you permanently turn to Permeating Mass. So this is a bomb. Because you can just straight up, if anybody touches it for any reason, you can just totally ruin the other creature for the rest of the game. Their abilities, everything about it, they turn into Permeating Mass. It's just, Now I have to check rules to see if you just become a copy of it, or if you have its abilities in addition to yours. But if I'm reading this correctly, it says when a creature becomes a copy of it, that creature essentially dies and you put this into play. You transform it permanently. But it just like, and you see, reading the lore, the flavor text at the bottom is, you know, you can't, warp the minds of something that now has become a plant. You know, it's like if you make something into a ghost, you can't change its mind because it has no mind, sort of thing. And if you're familiar with the lore from that series, that's actually one of the things that Liliana did in the story, is she was able to have the zombies fight back the Eldrazi because zombies couldn't be corrupted, at least mentally, from the Eldrazi. Yeah, they could be transformed, but they couldn't be controlled, and so they could fight them off, or at least hold them at bay. It's not like zombies are great fighters, unless you did stuff like what Nicobolus did on one of the worlds he subjugated, the Egyptian-themed one. Mockery of Nature. This is Eldrazi Beasts. AC has the Emerge. So and that's what it feels like. Any one of your creatures you could sacrifice to make this played for very cheap, and it's like it just pops out of it. Otherwise, you could pay a shit ton of mana to just play it by itself to do the effect, but you can also just have it emerge out of another body. It's like, oh my god. Horror themed indeed. 11 Wall Observer. This is a really cool, I would say it's also a bomb, because whenever a creature dies, you can draw a card. So if you have a lot of creatures dying, you're drawing a shit ton of cards. So like if you have a bunch of counters like Scions, Permeating Mass, Spirits, Zombies, whatever. Prey Upon allows you to have somebody fight somebody else, which is really cool. So you have someone with Death Touch, you can blow it up, you do Permeating Mass, you can turn into a Permeating Mass. If you have a super powerful, 10-9 Eldrazi, you can blow up any creature you want, because the odds of that something having more power than Eldrazi is slim to 0. Spriggan Sage Ritual, just utility. Grapple with the Past, basically graveyard recovery, so you can recast stuff that you put in your graveyard for whatever reason. And what's cool that this says it lets you get out a creature or land card. Then if you lost Handweir, the Meld card I showed you a little while ago, you could use that to get out any of the counterparts some may have destroyed. Or if someone killed the entire creature, you can get parts out that you lost, which is cool. From Beyond, this is one of the first cards I'm going to show you now that has the Devoid here, you see mechanic. And you also know a card is Devoid if you see this weird background as well. It looks very Eldrazi skin-like on the border. What that means is the card counts as having no color. So you paid for this casting cost, whatever it is, but when it comes into play, it's colorless. Even though it has mana symbols on its text, and at the top, it counts as having no color. So if someone said protection from green would not block you from this card, because this counts as colorless, therefore not green. And say this is a generator for getting Eldrazi Scions, you have more mana. Unnatural Aggression, another Devoid. Blow stuff up. Sorry, seeing how many cards went through. All right. Assembled Alphas. This is a cool bomb. It's a 5/5 wolf, which by itself is pretty good for 6 mana. But then also, whenever it attacks or becomes blocked, so whenever it's in battle, you could then do an additional 3 damage to that creature and 3 damage to the controller. That is, woof, terrible. So if you just hit your life, he'll hit you for 5. But if it battles a creature, let's say when I'm attacking you, he becomes an 8/5 and does 3 damage to you regardless. Yikes. And that's kind of the thematic we see from the card is when one of the wolves are in danger, then all your buddies join in. It's like they see blood. And that's how, it was cool because that's how wolves fight. You hardly ever see a wolf. I know everyone likes the idea of lone wolf, but wolves don't typically travel in packs. And so a lone wolf would find something and then get all of its buddies to join in to take down the kill. And that's cool. That's what it acts like. You have this one wolf and then the buddies jump in. Impetuous Devils. This card is technically like a destruction card. Like if you're playing destroy target creature. Because that's kind of what it is. For 4 mana, you have a trample haste that I force somebody to block it. So you play this and you just blow something up. Gets jumped instead of by a bunch of wolves like you saw before. This one you jump somebody with a bunch of devils. Bedlam Reveler. Now we're getting not only a devil, but a devil horror. That's like, what could be worse than a devil? This is only a 3/4, but it's got a stupid high casting cost, but it's got a way to reduce it. But it's got prowess. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, this creature gets +1/+1 until end of turn. It's a non-creature, so if you put down stuff that's not a land and not a creature, it gets more powerful. But then also it says when he enters the battlefield, you discard your entire hand, which is bad. Unless you're playing black, then that's good. But then you could draw 3 more cards. So this is just a cool way that it's like, oh man, all I have is lands in my hand or garbage. Then you can just draw 3 more cards and put down a dude, which is what I would use it for. Stormkirk Occultist. I just think this art is amazing. It's like a Medusa looking woman here, a vampire horror. And because that kind of looks like a Medusa, I like it. And she's got madness. So if this card is exiled, if this card is discarded for any reason, instead of it going to the graveyard, you can pay its madness cost. Well, I'll read it to you. So I was going to summarize, but I'm starting to confuse myself. If you discard this card, discard it into exile. When you do, cast for its madness cost or put it into your graveyard. So it's almost like the Eldrazi, when you die, catches your soul before you actually die, and it puts you back into play, transformed. It turns a thought into matter, discard, exile, come into play, or you go to the graveyard. So if you discard this and pay 2, or you can play it from your hand for 3. So for example, like, you can use that devil I showed you to discard the vampire horror, and then only have to pay 2 to bring her out. And then you get cards in your hand from the devil. It's pretty cool. Blood Mist. It's really, for an uncommon, it's really devastating enchantment. The fact that you can give some double strike every turn, any creature you want. And then we just have a few cards left here. We also have Spreading Flames. Chandra going to work. Super expensive card because it does super damage to super number of targets. So just, yeah. End game card when you got a shit ton of mana or a whole bunch of Scions to sacrifice, which add 1 mana to your mana pool. They can just go ape. Shreds of Sanity. Basically a tutor for your graveyard. Get stuff out. Just like the green card I showed earlier. Worked a little different, but same type of utility. Collective Defiance. Again, that's why you see Chandra again. It's just a different type of card. They can do a different type of damage different ways. And it's got the escalate mechanic that you can have this card do more abilities every time you pay an additional 1. Every time you pay the additional escalate, essentially. So if I pay 4 mana, I could do 2 abilities. If I pay 5 mana, I could do all the abilities on the card. Savage Alliance, similar thing, but for wolves. You choose a bunch of stuff you can do. Turn Against, which is the Void. Gain control of another creature, always good. Touch of the Void. You know how much I like Void. This only does limited damage, sure. 3 is actually pretty good. But then if the creature would die for any reason, instead it's exiled. So if someone's doing something from the graveyard, you prevent them from doing that. In addition, if anything procs when it goes to exile, you could do Touch of the Void. So either your creature or someone else's, if there's a benefit for it to actually being exiled to trigger something, you can purposely do this just to trigger it to go to exile. Grove Rambler. This is a multicolored card. The only one I have in this deck that uses a red and green. It's got a pretty cool landfall mechanic and trample, which is always good. A good mid-range game. Mid-range card. And it's also elemental, which is themey. Why? Because we got to bring out some elementals. I said I had one, which is my biggest bomb in the deck, which is Omnath, Locus of Rage. I mean, he even looks like he's angry. Roar. This is a bomb, which makes sense. I mean, for fuck's sake, it's 7 mana, and 4 of the mana has to be specific colors, 2 different types. This is a very hard card to play. But it is a bomb. A 5/5 that every time I play a land, I could also put a 5/5 elemental into play, like the elemental creature token that I showed you. Which looks like Locus of Rage. Hint, hint. And then, if this dude or any of those elementals die for any reason, I could then do 3 damage to any target. So, I mean, I could put a whole bunch of lands into play, and if I destroy all of my creatures, I could then do that much damage times 3 to any targets I want. I could like gun for your life and just blow you up. It's just, oh my god, it's crazy. Once this comes out, you're just like eternally fucked. It's like every time I play a land, it just grows. If you kill it, then you're gonna pay for it. It's amazing. And then the last card I have in my deck, other than quickly showing you some of my land choice, is Aligned Hedron Network. This is a great trap card, is what I call it, if familiar with Yu-Gi-Oh!, because you can imprison all creatures for the rest of the game that's power 5 or greater. They're all exiled. So if you know that, oh my god, I can't handle all this shit, this stops it. The bad thing is it could target your stuff as well, so you gotta be careful when you time it, but it's a good way to save yourself. Alright, so now I will show you some things. Here's that elemental token again. I like what's themey, the fact that the token looks like exactly what you're doing thematically, instead of just having it look like a random elemental. I am all about the theme. Alright, so what do I have for lands? Obviously I have forests, obviously I have mountains, I won't bore you with that. The total number of lands I have in the deck is 24. Split evenly, one mountain and forest, but I also have a couple special lands, and that's what I want to show you as well, that make up that 24. That is what I want to show. All right. So we got Evolving Wilds. You know it, I know it. It's in probably every core set when they do the M21 and M22, whatever. They can look for any basic lands, so you make sure you don't get color fucked when you're trying to play Omnath. Fertile Thicket. This is cool just because you can look for lands, and it can also produce a green as well. Blighted Woodland adds 1 colorless mana to your mana pool, but also you can use it to search for basic lands. Similar to this dude, it's like you can use it for something, and then if you want a particular color, you can bounce it. Whereas this one, you just bounce it. This one, you can use it, bounce it. Looming Spires allows you to inflate, give some abilities to your creatures, as well as give you mana. And then Timber Gorge, which is a split land. And that is the deck. So again, this is a 60-card deck with 24 lands total. And it just, like I say, it's got a cool taste. If you like stuff that's tasty, you know, you get a bunch of different tokens, bunch of transforming dudes, a melding dude, some emerge, some madness. Who doesn't like a little madness? Some devoid. You got some really cool bombs. It's a fun deck. And again, this is from the Eldrazi set from 5 years ago, largely from Eldritch Moon, but it's from all 3 sets. So if interested, that's where these cards are from. And again, I have one of every card in this deck other than basic lands. So it's easy to build. Well, thanks for watching. Again, I'm going to have some more Eldrazi block decks in the next couple streams to show you other colors, makes and what you can do with some of the fun cards in those sets. And so be sure to check them out. Again, this is Ismortah on twitch.tv/Ismortah. And I'll catch you next time.